Kind of got our feet wet with metadata. Now it's time to get a little bit crazy. We do have several scenes in our movie here, and each shot in the scene has a specific place in our film. Now, if we want to put this film together, we could kind of go through our media and kind of figure out what we need to do first manually, and that is a way that we could do it. But we have a couple tools at our disposal. If we go to our work files folder, remember we have our script and our storyboard. We've already kind of done the work of designing what the movie is, so why would we do that again in the edit? Let's at least start with the plan that we had, and maybe we'll change it from there. So let's double click on the storyboard, and that will open up in a browser most likely. And I'll just put this over here to the side. And now we can clearly see what shot goes where in our movie. And we can kind of make our edit from this template. So one thing we could do is look for this shot and then throw it into our edit, and then look for the next shot and throw it into our edit. And that would be a pretty good way to do this. But we're going to use metadata to get organized first. I'm going to show you how we do a little bit of this, and you're welcome to do as much or as little as you want, because we'll open up a new project here in a minute with everything nicely tagged and organized. So let's just start with the hotel. Double click on this first clip, and I'll close our media storage just to make things less confusing. And now we can kind of just preview this shot. So it looks like she's getting ready. So back in our storyboard, that looks like this: scene 1, shot 1. Great. Now, if we look in our metadata over here, we actually have some fields for shot and scene, as well as take, angle, move, all kinds of things. You can get really detailed. But for us, this is scene 1, shot 1. Now, just because we have one clip selected, we don't need to do the check mark and save thing here. It's already automatically saved. And so now, if we go in between our shots, this one has scene 1, shot 1, and this one doesn't. So that's pretty much the idea, going through and tagging all of these shots to be the right shot and scene. And let's find the next shot. So scene 1, shot 2 is putting on boots. So let's see if we have something with boots. There we go, there's boots. So that's scene 1, shot 2. Okay, what's next? Putting the gun in the belt. Let's see if we have something like, here we go right there. So this was scene 1, shot 3, scene 1, shot 3. Then grabbing the phone, we should have something like that. Again, anytime that you shoot, your storyboard doesn't always completely match, right? That's ideal, but not always necessarily the case. Okay, so here's her grabbing her phone. So let's select that, and that's going to be scene 1, shot 4, scene 1, shot 4. In fact, all of these are going to be scene 1, so we can select all of these, and we'll make sure everything updates with scene 1 and hit save. And now everything has scene 1. We just need to figure out what all the shots are. Let's go to the next one. Opening the curtains. Scene 1, shot 5. Opening the curtains. There we go. Scene 1, shot 5. And scene 1, shot 6. Looks like taking the phone and moving out the door. So taking the phone and going away. I don't know if we have something like that. That's exactly what we shot. Actually, I think that's supposed to be this one, is shot 6. Okay. And then her leaving, going out the door. I guess this is kind of shot 6, isn't it? It's because what functionally needs to happen is she grabs the phone and heads out the door. So looks like we decided to do that with one shot. So shot, I'm just going to say 6 and 7 here in our metadata, and hit save. And some of these shots we got are just extra. These are just extra shots that we got for coverage, right? So we have her putting on her hoodie right here, but we don't really have a shot for that. So what I like to do for that kind of thing is just say shot X for extra, and we'll just call this X1 or something like that. And really you can choose whatever you want for that kind of thing, because they're extra. It doesn't really matter what order they are. We'll just kind of have to figure that out in the edit. But the idea is to go through all of our shots and figure out if they're a shot that lines up with the storyboard or if they're an extra shot. Now, ideally, again, ideally, it would say the exact shot on the slate here, because we did slate everything. The only problem is that the organization that we were using for shooting doesn't really match up with our storyboard. Obviously, ideally, that would be great, but this is a real world practical training, right? And you make mistakes like that. And we did, that's the real world. So we're going to kind of run into a lot of things like this because that's just how a real project goes. Everything isn't always lined out perfectly, and you kind of have to figure out a way to deal with it. So we'll be using this storyboard as our ultimate reference for what the shots are called as far as scene and shot, and tag each of these in a way that makes sense. So there is no real belt shot that's an extra shot, so we could say X2 and that kind of thing. And the idea here is to do this for every single scene, which is a lot of prep work. And again, this is something that for every project might not be practical. It might not be necessary. If you're working on a really short project with only a couple scenes, you might not need to do all this. You can probably just put it together visually, which honestly is what I do most of the time. But I know there are some of us that like to be really organized and like to get crazy with metadata, and this is how you do it. And actually for this project, because of the way that we're going to sync audio, this is going to come in very, very helpful. And we're going to get into that in the next lesson.